I asked my mom to pick up my kids during a snowstorm. She said the dog's haircut came first. Hi, I'm Ryan, 39, and 3 winters ago, I found out exactly where I ranked on my mother's priority list, below a dog haircut. It was a Wednesday in late January, the kind of Colorado day that starts sunny and tricks you into thinking you don't need gloves. I was coming back from a police training in the mountains, tired, cold, and just ready to get home to my wife and 2 kids. And then the snow came. Not cute little flakes. No, this storm came in swinging like it had a personal grudge. Visibility dropped to nothing. The highway turned into a frozen parking lot, and I found myself completely stuck on I-70 behind a jackknifed semi. I called my wife, Jen. She was already scrambling. Ryan, Mason's school is closing in an hour. Chloe's too. I can't leave work. If I walk out, I'm done. I told her I'd figure it out. So I did what anyone would do. I called my mom. Now, my mom, Donna, lives 20 minutes from the school. No traffic. She always says things like, family's everything, and, you know I'm always here for you guys. This seemed like a perfect time to prove it. She picked up on the third ring. Mom, I'm stuck on the highway. Can you grab the kids from school? Jen's at work and... She cut me off. I'm at the groomer. What? I'm watching your sister's dog get a haircut. Luna gets anxious, and Belle couldn't take her. I just sat there in the truck staring at the windshield like maybe I'd hallucinated that sentence. Mom, it's a snowstorm. My kids are going to be sitting alone at school. She sighed like I was asking her to carry a piano. Call an Uber. That's the moment something snapped in me. Not a full break. Just a clean, quiet snap. Like when you realize the thing you've been hoping for, your mom showing up for you, just isn't going to happen. I called the Uber. It cost $340. My kids were safe. I wasn't. That night, I opened my laptop and took my parents off my life insurance, the emergency contact forms, the house access, and the phone plan. I didn't do it angry. I did it like I was doing paperwork. And 3 years later, when she texted me out of nowhere saying, "Your father had a heart attack," I replied, "My name is Ryan Harper. I'm 39 years old." And for the first time, I meant it. Let me take you back. Because you don't just become the kind of person who takes your own parents off your life insurance overnight. That takes training, repetition, years of learning how to shrink yourself into someone useful instead of someone loved. I grew up in Aurora, just outside Denver, in one of those neighborhoods where every house looks like it came from the same catalog. My dad, Tom, worked maintenance for the school district. Quiet guy, good with tools, bad with confrontation. My mom, Donna, ran the house like a CEO with a bad HR department. And then there was Belle. Belle wasn't just the favorite. She was the main character of the Harper family cinematic universe. Everything revolved around her. Her dance recitals, her bad breakups, her 3 different majors in college. I once got straight A's in middle school and brought my report card home like it was a golden ticket. Mom glanced at it, said, "That's nice, honey," and tacked it on the fridge under a magnet shaped like a banana. Belle failed an audition 2 days later and got a brand new phone to cheer her up. That's the dynamic we were raised in. Belle had crises. I had responsibilities. One Christmas, I unwrapped a pair of socks and a secondhand paperback that still had someone else's name written inside the cover. Belle got an electric guitar and an amp. Dad looked at me and said, "Pretty cool, huh?" And I remember thinking, at age 9, so this is how it's going to be. By the time I was in high school, I stopped trying to impress them. I just focused on what I could control: grades, work, staying out of trouble. I became dependable, reliable, background support for the Belle Show. And that became my role into adulthood. I got into law enforcement because it gave me structure, respect. It made me feel like I mattered somewhere. I married Jen when I was 28. She's brilliant, calm, and allergic to manipulation. We had Mason, then Chloe. I swore I'd be the dad who never made them feel like they had to earn their worth. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, Belle was bouncing between boyfriends, jobs, and creative dreams. My parents would call me to help out. $600 here, $1,200 there. Always urgent. Always just this once. But there was always a next time. Jen noticed before I did. She called it slow-motion codependency with a side of guilt casserole. Still, I told myself it was family. I paid off Belle's car repair, covered a surprise vet bill, added my parents to my phone plan to save money, put my mom down as a backup emergency contact for the kids, even gave her a key to the house. And in return, She couldn't pick up her grandkids because Belle's dog needed a blowout and a bow. That was the exchange rate. That was the moment I finally saw the family I actually had, not the one I kept hoping they'd become. The snowstorm broke something open in me, but it was what came after that cemented it. I didn't make a scene. I didn't call and yell. I didn't post angry rants online. I just quietly started making everything match reality. Took my mom and Belle off my phone plan. Paid off their devices to avoid the but I still owe drama. I changed my life insurance to name only Jen and the kids, with a trust backup managed by Jen's brother, Owen, the accountant who treats emotion like a math problem. I double-checked school forms, doctor forms, anything with emergency contact on it, and scrubbed their names. That weekend, I changed the locks. Not because I thought they'd barge in, but because I couldn't stand the idea of them having access to a home they treated like a convenience store. And for a few months, it was quiet. Too quiet. Which, if you know my family, is the kind of quiet that comes before a group text bomb. It started with Belle. She sent this 3-paragraph message about how I was taking things too far and treating people like criminals just because you wear a badge. She ended it with, "Just remember, one day your kids will treat you the way you treat your parents." I didn't respond. Then Mom called. Except her phone was already off the plan, so she had to use Belle's. I picked up because I was still wired to react to her name. "Ryan, what did you do? My phone isn't working. Neither is Belle's." I said, "I removed you from my plan." She paused. Then her voice got sharp, like it always did when she was caught off guard. "How could you do that to us?" I said, "You told me to call an Uber in a blizzard for your grandkids." She made this noise, somewhere between a scoff and a sigh. "Don't start with that again. It was one afternoon." One afternoon was all it took. That's what I told her. And I meant it. It was the day I realized she didn't see me as a son. She saw me as a resource. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't about punishment. It was about protection. For Jen. For Mason and Chloe. And honestly, for me. Then Grandpa Joe called. He's my dad's dad. Old school, gentle voice, used to run a hardware store where he'd hand kids candy from a glass jar on the counter. "You all right, kid?" "Yeah," he said. "Donna's been calling the family, saying you've turned your back on everyone." I didn't say anything. Then he added, "That's not what I think. You're just the first one brave enough to say no." That's when I asked him for help. Not money, not support, just the truth. Because the next chapter was coming fast. And this time, I was going to walk into it with evidence. Grandpa Joe showed up at my house 2 days later with a manila folder, a thermos of black coffee, and that look he always gets when he's about to fix something that's been broken too long. "I've been waiting for this day," he said, setting the folder down like it was a court exhibit. Inside, copies of old bank transfers, emails, even some text messages my mom had sent over the years. He'd been quietly archiving them. Your mom talks a lot. I listen more than she realizes. There were records of me sending $600 for Belle's car repairs, $900 a month later for the same car, $1,500 for rent, $1,200 for dental work. Little bits over years that added up to $16,740. He had the receipts. We sat at my kitchen table going through it like we were building a case. Because we were. "Why'd you keep all this?" I asked. Joe sipped his coffee. "Because I saw what they were doing to you, and I figured one day you'd stop tolerating it." And I had. That weekend, I took Jen and the kids to the park. First warm day in a while. Chloe fell in the mud and laughed like it was a game. Mason found a ladybug and tried to convince me it was a sign of good luck. I believed him. I was starting to feel something I hadn't in years. Peace. Until the invitation came. A family dinner at a restaurant in Lakewood. Retirement party for my dad. Hosted by Mom. Mandatory, but casual, whatever that meant in Donna speak. Jen raised one eyebrow when I showed her the message. "You going?" "I don't want to." "Then don't." I hesitated. Then Grandpa Joe called. "You should go? Once." "Why?" "Because if you don't, they'll write the story without you in it. This way, you get to say your part, then walk away." He was right. They would have spun it as me being dramatic or cruel. This wasn't about drama. It was about clarity. So we RSVP'd yes. And I spent the next 3 days rehearsing exactly what I wouldn't say and what I absolutely would. Because I wasn't just showing up as the son anymore. I was showing up as the record keeper. And I had the ledger ready. The restaurant was one of those places trying too hard to be cozy. Dim lighting, Fake candles on every table, servers in black button-ups pretending not to notice the family tension radiating off us like heat. Jen and I arrived on time, the kids with her sister for the night. I wore a nice shirt. Jen looked like calm judgment wrapped in cashmere. Mom greeted us like nothing had ever happened. Ryan, oh, I'm so glad you could make it. She air-kissed my cheek. I didn't respond. Belle breezed in 15 minutes late in a crop top and drama. Sorry I'm late. Luna threw up again, probably because she misses her grooming days. Jen's jaw flexed. We all sat. Dad looked tired, quiet. He gave me a small nod across the table, which I returned. He didn't say much, didn't ever, but something about his silence tonight felt heavier. We ordered food. The tension clinked around us like silverware. Then Mom raised her glass. I just want to say how proud I am of this family. Tom worked hard his whole life. Belle is figuring things out. And Ryan, well, she chuckled. Ryan is Ryan. Polite laughter. Mine stayed in my throat. Then she said it. And I just want to acknowledge it's been hard lately. Some people in this family have made choices that hurt us. But tonight is about forgiveness. And she looked straight at me. Belle chimed in. Yeah, we don't even have phones because someone got a little badge happy and decided to play dictator. Jen didn't move. Didn't blink. Just kept cutting her chicken like it had personally offended her. I set my fork down. Not hard. Not dramatic. Just final. Since you brought it up, I said, my voice even. Let's be honest. Mom froze. Belle looked ready to pounce. I looked around the table. 3 winters ago, I was stranded on I-70 for 9 hours in a snowstorm. I called Mom because I couldn't get to my kids. I asked her to pick them up. She said she was busy getting Belle's dog groomed. Silence. I paid $340 for an Uber so my kids wouldn't be the last ones crying at a dark school. I turned to Belle. And your response now is, we don't even have phones? Mom opened her mouth. I cut her off. That was the moment I realized I wasn't your son anymore. I was your safety net. And then, like a quiet gavel, Grandpa Joe cleared his throat. Denise, he said, soft but firm. I remember that day. Ryan called me too. You chose the dog. Mom looked at him like he'd slapped her. Belle snapped. Grandpa, stay out of it. Joe didn't flinch. No. Then he reached into his bag, pulled out the folder, and slid a page across the table toward Dad. It was the spreadsheet. All of it. Every dollar. Every just this once. Dad stared at the numbers like they were a secret he'd been trying not to know. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like the problem. I felt like the one telling the truth. My mom stared at the spreadsheet like it had personally insulted her. Her lips pressed, so tight, they disappeared. What is this supposed to prove? She snapped. I didn't raise my voice. That for years, I was your fallback. And the one time I asked you to be mine, you said no because Belle's dog had a hair appointment. Belle scoffed. No one made you send that money. Jen finally spoke, calm as ever. And yet you took it. Repeatedly. Without apology. Belle glared. You don't get it. You married into this family. You're not even blood. Jen leaned back in her chair. Exactly. My mom shot daggers at her, but Jen didn't even blink. She just took a sip of her water like she was watching the final act of a play she'd already seen 10 times. Dad still hadn't spoken. He was staring at the sheet, running his finger down the columns like he was finally seeing it all. Then he said, barely above a whisper, $16,000? Closer to 17, Grandpa Joe added, flipping the page. That's when Mom turned to me, eyes glassy, but not with sadness. No, this was classic Donna rage with tears. So what? You're cutting us off now? Over one bad decision? I looked her straight in the eye. You didn't just make a bad decision. You revealed who you are. And I finally decided to believe you. She blinked. You made yourselves unavailable when it mattered. I'm just making the paperwork match reality. Belle muttered, you're so dramatic. Grandpa Joe turned to her. You know what's dramatic? A grown woman with no job, living off her brother's generosity, pretending she's the victim. Belle's mouth opened, then closed. Joe wasn't done. And Denise, he's your son. He asked you for help, and you sighed like he was a telemarketer. You don't get to play the martyr now. The silence that followed was suffocating. You could hear forks hitting plates 2 tables over. I stood up slowly. Happy retirement, Dad. I mean that. He looked up at me. There was something behind his eyes, regret, maybe, or relief. Jen stood too. We dropped a couple bills on the table, more than our share. As we walked out, my mom called after me. Ryan, You can't just walk away from family. I turned back once. You walked away first. I just made it official. After that dinner, the spin cycle started fast. Mom's version of events hit the extended family group chat before Jen and I even made it to the car. According to her, I'd ambushed her at Dad's retirement dinner and cut them off financially out of nowhere. Belle posted some vague Facebook status about being betrayed by the people you thought had your back. Her friends piled on in the comments. All the usual suspects. You're so strong, girl. Family can be so toxic. Jen and I said nothing. That was the part that drove them the craziest. No public rebuttals, no messy online drama. Just silence. Calm, steady silence. And boundaries. When Mom called Jen to talk woman to woman, Jen blocked the number. When Belle tried to tag me in a whiny post, I removed the tag and kept scrolling. My aunt sent me a long message about forgiveness and remembering who raised you. I replied with one sentence, please respect my decision. Dad didn't reach out. That stung more than I expected. But honestly, it wasn't surprising. His whole parenting style was silence. It had been his way of keeping the peace, except it wasn't peace. It was avoidance dressed in work boots. And for the first time, I stopped excusing it. I used the quiet to build the kind of life I used to only daydream about. Jen and I sat down and made a real budget, not the surprise Belle bill version. We set up college funds for Mason and Chloe. We started planning a vacation that didn't involve guilt, chaos, or someone crashing on our couch because their lease fell through again. I started sleeping better. Jen said I smiled more. Even the kids noticed. One night Mason looked up at me during dinner and said, "You don't look tired anymore, Dad." That hit harder than I expected. Grandpa Joe came by every Sunday like clockwork. We'd drink bad coffee in the garage, and he'd listen to Chloe tell elaborate stories about a raccoon she made up named Detective Fuzzy. Mason showed him his drawings. Joe always clapped like they were museum pieces. "You're giving them the kind of childhood you deserved," he told me once. And that was it. That was the line that broke me open in the best way. But then, 3 years later, the text came. From a new number. "Mom, your father had a heart attack. He's in the hospital." No greeting. No context. Just crisis. Like hitting the sun panic button. I stared at it for a full minute. Not because I didn't care. Because I did. But also because I'd finally learned that caring doesn't mean collapsing. I typed back. "I'm sorry to hear that. I hope he recovers. Please send me the hospital name and room number. I'll contact Dad directly once he's stable. For anything else, ask Belle." She responded instantly. "Wow. Cold. After everything we've done for you." I didn't reply. Because that was the trap. I called the hospital myself. Didn't wait for Mom to send the room number. Didn't give her another inch of leverage. When I finally got Dad on the line, his voice was weak, raspy, like gravel dragged over asphalt. "Hey, kiddo," he said. And even though I was 39 years old with a mortgage and 2 kids of my own, that hit me like a gut punch. "How are you feeling?" I asked. "Tired," he said. "They're running tests." We talked about the weather, the nurses, his blood pressure. We danced around the big thing, like always. Then he said, "Your mom told me you're still mad." I kept my tone flat. "I'm not mad. I'm done." Silence. Then I added, "I'm checking on you, not revisiting old chapters." He exhaled. "Fair. I visited once. Just me." Sat beside his bed while he dozed in and out. When he woke, he looked at me like he wasn't sure if I was real or a dream. "I should have gone to get your kids," he whispered. I looked at him for a long time. "Yeah, you should have." He nodded. Didn't argue. Didn't excuse it. That mattered. He never apologized directly. But that moment, it was something. Maybe not enough, but it was something. Back home, Jen asked if I regretted the boundaries. I thought about it. The Uber. The dog groomer. That Facebook post. Anything for my baby. "No," I said. "I regret how long I waited. Because the thing about peace? It feels strange at first. Like waiting for a slap that never comes. Like the quiet before a storm. But then one day, you realize the storm isn't coming. It already passed. And you survived. You moved the furniture. You patched the roof. You changed the locks. And you stopped mistaking access for love. These days, Mason's playing baseball, Chloe's taking art classes, and Jen's planning a road trip for the 4 of us next summer. Just us. No side characters. No drama. And every time my phone buzzes now, I don't flinch. Because I know, My life doesn't belong to the loudest voices anymore. It belongs to the ones who show up. Every time.